Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Create Smarter podcast. I'm Tyler Pyburn. Ever wonder how you can bring your event to the next level and go beyond the stage? Well, I sat down with my friend Bill Sell to talk about how the ONUG conference did exactly that. I welcome in Bill Sell of Advisor Communications. Bill, thanks so much for taking time out today.
Sure,
Obviously,
it's
really
great to
appreciate
come into
it.
studio. You know, things are back in person.
I know the fact that we can do this is a good thing,
it
right?
could have been done as a Zoom call, but back in person is just so much better.
No question. But, you know, back in person is interesting. And tell me, for the folks, I can't do it justice. Explain what the ONUG conference is and what it was and what it's going
The
to be.
Open Networking User Group is when you're using cloud computing, let's say you use AWS and you use Google Cloud or Microsoft Azure, the standards that connect the two, that comes out of ONUG. It is a user group and all the vendor community are there and many of the major IT community are there too. So you're going to have the IT executive from a bank or from an insurance company. And they all come in and they play Switzerland and they want to talk about how do we make data move in the cloud. You can't call up Jeff Bezos, reboot my server.
Yep.
So how do you work around that? Everything on that comes out of this meeting. So all year long they're doing user group conference calls for different niche groups, and then they come together and then all that presentation
2 times a
takes
year
place.
they have,
Twice a year.
fall and spring, they have these large events that are hybrid.
Yes.
They're in person and they're remote. When did they actually go remote?
The remote, we switched beginning of March of 2020. We realized there was not going to be a chance of getting back together in person. So for the May 2020 event, we went completely online. And I had evaluated 13 different platforms to figure out what was going to be the one that would work. We settled on this one called Hopin, H-O-P-I-N, out of the UK. And quickly set it up and had to completely retool our thinking. We were looking at in-person and 60, 70 people in a room times 5-6 rooms, have 500-600 people at the event. But when you go online, those numbers can change and they can change dramatically. So that first event we ran, about 3,300 people around the world took part.
That's amazing. It's incredible how, Phil and I were just talking about things have changed dramatically. And it's not just that event, it's all events. Right? Yep. Every single one of them have kind of gone hybrid, right? Like it's no longer the check the box thing, as we were saying before. Like you have to do these.
And
pieces.
Before we would take a keynote and stream a keynote, simple enough to do. When you do a hybrid event, it really is all of the in-person event and parallel to it, all of the online event, and then the glue between the two, because you do want to have it in real time.
Yeah, well, for event planners out there, you're planning 2 conferences.
You're planning 2 completely different personas. You have to think about what people will see. One of the little things that we experienced.
I was going to say, what are some of those little kind of tips and tricks? Because that's what I really want to get into with the folks at home or in their office, wherever they're working today, actually, is what are some of the things that you can take away from that you've learned by doing these true hybrid, we have it in the slide right here, downtime is the enemy, especially for the folks that are online.
Yes.
So what are the things that you can do to say, I'm planning 2 conferences, how do I keep both sides engaged?
That downtime is actually the single biggest thing to plan for. When you think about TV, over-the-air TV, cable TV, whatever it is, something is always on screen. You always have something flowing there. And Netflix had to have the little spinny thing showing that it's loading because people won't wait. You get 2-3 seconds of just a dark screen and you think it's over. Time to change channel. That same thing will happen with a live event. And if you're doing an online stream and you've had the first keynote finish and they're in person, they're going to walk off the stage. People in the room see them, no problem. People online, they see an empty stage. It must be a bad signal, let me go. And that little X in the upper right corner.
Well, think exactly. People are watching. Think about where they're watching these things, right? They're on their laptop, they're on their computer, they're on their phone. Very seldomly do they have it on a television screen, right? So if they are watching it there, that email button is always at the bottom of your.
If you're looking in Chrome, if you're looking in Windows, you got all those little tabs at the bottom, and any one of those could be reminding you to switch gears. And
so with that, what one of the things that I think was really interesting that you do, you talk about. You could put up an ONUG slide or your event sponsor that just is on loop, but that's also downtime. So we're talking about when someone walks off stage and the next speaker's coming up, you're changing the furniture out because a panel backs up to a keynote.
Exactly.
You have to change. That takes 3, 4, 5 minutes time. What were some of the things that you did?
So we created the MC stage, our master of ceremonies, or 1 or 2 people, industry analysts, and they can talk about a few things while the stage is being set. They can say, this is what I just picked up from that last speaker. Here's who's coming up next. Oh, by the way, in 3 hours, don't forget to do this. Go online, vote, renew membership, whatever it might be. And we always had 1 or 2 people, maybe even 3 up there.
Yep.
And oftentimes, if we had a 30-minute break on the main stage, we would actually do interviews there.
Yep.
If you've got a sponsor or an exhibitor that had some kind of a problem with something, don't worry about a make good on the next show. Bring them up on stage. A 2-minute interview with their person.
Exactly.
Just changes everything.
And we've noticed that Phil, Kyle, the entire team and I, we've talked about this. When we're doing just full-blown remote events, you need that, person in studio just in case something happens to help bring. So, say on stage the Q to Q actually goes out, right, and they can't see what's happening. Well, you ought, instead of having an MC walk from the back of the room and walk up on the front of the stage and just have a conversation, tell you what's next. You can have that sidebar stage always ready to go, which, Mark, it was always sitting there.
Yep.
At Ona.
The Ona
fantastic.
CTO.
Yep.
And the way we had set it up with your cameras is that one of the cameras that is the wide shot for the main stage can also swing and do a wide shot of the MC stage. So the 2 of them need to be in somewhat close proximity. But as long as the MC knows how to stretch and fill something, the mic wasn't working, the slides didn't work, the laptop, something goes wrong on the main stage, you still have program going, you still have content going. And that means you still keep your audience on the online side.
Yep.
So
keeping your audience on the online side.
So like single biggest hassle really for us to keep thinking about what else to do, but it's the most important thing to do from a customer point of view.
Now we're talking about hybrid. Phil, I understand that you have a question as it pertains to that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first question, this comes up a lot when we plan hybrid events. What are ways the audience can interact with the event outside of just asking questions on the stage? So you've got that mic stand, on the aisles at your traditional event, people walk up and ask questions. What are ways the audience can interact with the event outside of just that kind of traditional function?
Well, we look at it that the Q&A feature is probably ground zero, and you're going to build up from there. So we want to have chat. So we will actually ask people in the online program to be there on chat and continue to pose questions and keep the dialogue going. Again, industry analysts who want to get their name out, this is a great way to go. People who are doing blogs and trying to do interview shows and things like that all around the year, this is the time for them to come in and join you in person, but focus in the online program. The microphone in the aisle, that's actually one of the more troubling things, because you never know what that question's going to be. And is it a question for one person only, and you've got 1,000 people in the audience, 999 don't care. And it could be a 3-minute question that gets asked, not a 3-second question. With the online program, you can actually see what the questions are up front. You can choose which ones to answer and which ones you want to actually have the audience hear and take in as part of the content program.
What was really interesting about your event specifically that I loved is that engagement. And I think you actually had someone dedicated to the chat specifically. Was it Rachel, I believe?
Rachel, one of our social media
what was
managers,
really great was every morning, it was good morning. It was asking everybody how they're doing, asking the questions of where they're watching today. So it's kind of sparking that engagement right from the get-go, right?
Yes, you need to keep the dialogue going. It will not naturally just happen on its own. So we have a person in person with us, so they're here, they're part of the team meetings every day, they know what's going to be happening, and then they can focus on going online. They can do the social media piece, the LinkedIn, the Twitter, the Facebook pages, and they can also be doing it in the actual live stream event that we're going to be doing.
So now let's bring it back. Let's talk about the in-person component of it. What are some of the lessons and things that you've learned since kind of coming back from COVID about, length of shows and things like that? Because what I find interesting is that it's no longer, well, we're going to have a 3-day show. Are they trimming it down to say we're going to do it 1 day? Is it shortening that lesson? What are the things
shorter
that are
is better. One of the problems we found is that people who are going to be traveling out at the end of the day, it used to be that if you had a 7 o'clock flight, you'd leave at 5, no big deal.
Yep.
With COVID, the lines at the airport are longer. Everything just takes more time. And people are not leaving at 5, they're now leaving at 3. So if you are going to have your closing day, you really do need to end it middle of the afternoon. Because if you try to push it to 4 or to 5 o'clock, half your audience will have walked out. And part of that will be your exhibitors. They're bringing the retractable banners. Yeah, they're folding a couple of those up and rolling them out.
It doesn't become a good experience for anybody.
It's exactly.
There, right?
Everything is different. You're seeing your neighbor tearing down their booth. Well, why should I stick around here? You know, I'm going to have dinner and then
They've
fly
already
out in the
changed into
morning,
sweatpants. What has just happened?
It's
right?
just, it really changes the mood and the atmosphere. So don't push it. End it. And we will do a drawing of some kind if there is something. We try to do things with prizes and giveaways that the exhibitors have that we'll try to make a bigger deal about giving it out at the end. And with ONUG, they usually end it with a champagne toast.
The other thing that I find interesting about this conference specifically, but I'm also wondering, talking about the attention spans, especially for the folks that are online, but also in person too, it's not just a main stage. Talk to the importance of tracks, of having multiple places to go.
Yeah,
and
it's very important with the online
also for
program.
sponsors too, right?
Yes. Well, the sponsors pay the bills, of course,
Yes.
so that's the important part. But you do need to have varied content. 500 channels on your TV, and you can keep flipping around all day, and then you still want to find something new. So then you grab laptop and you go onto YouTube or something.
Yep.
We have that same issue when you're dealing with events, and that you always have, well, let me go check my email as the alternative.
Of course.
So we have to one-up your, I go read my email. So that's why you need to have breakout sessions. You need to have content that comes from the sponsors. They all want to be presenting something. They all want to be on the main stage. Well, that's not going to happen unless it's a keynote or something like that. But if you have 50, 60 sponsors, you may have enough for 3 or 4 parallel tracks simultaneously online.
And that allows for attendees, both virtual and in person, to kind of choose their own adventure and kind of
Yes.
go along the way of figuring out what they want. And to be honest with you, no one knows how bad a track is going like a production company, because we always have one camera pointed at the audience as well. So we can gauge from the front, we can always see who's on their phone, who's answering email, who's not looking at the stage right now, right? So it's easy for us to tell. When you do have multiple tracks and multiple sessions, it allows those folks to go ahead and break things up, right? Pick which way they're going to
Now,
go.
one of the unique things, though, is we could have an in-person event with one person seated in the audience, and you think, wow, that bombed. But you could have 350 people online watching that exact same session, and that ain't a bomb. That's a real hit. That's a win, and we have to push through. So you'll frequently get somebody in a presentation where they say, "Oh, there's just not enough people here," and just gather around. Let me take the microphone off. It's like, whoa, you're on camera. You've got a whole community out there. You don't see them. And that's one of the challenges. We have to carry that message back into the event as to how many people are out there and what are they doing and what are they watching. They really are an extension of what's happening in the building. That's the difference between let's record it and put it up on an archive, or let's do a genuine hybrid event. And if you're really going to play the hybrid event game, you have to be aware of both audiences at the exact same time.
Well, I know what clip is in fact going up on Instagram later, so go ahead do that, because that was just gold right there. I love that. Now, what I want to move into now, and the questions that we always get is about the tech, right? Everybody always asks you, what are you using? What are some of the tech? But the one thing I want people to realize is that it's not as scary as it was, right? The one thing that COVID did was we saw more platforms pop up. We saw more video conferencing platforms and software pop up. We saw a lot more hardware come out that allowing, turning professional grade cameras into webcams. What are some of the things that you're taking advantage of outside of, bring us in, that you could kind of do on your own?
Well, as I was saying, back in beginning of 2020, when this thing just started unraveling on the in-person piece, we evaluated 13 platforms. I could have easily done 2-3 dozen if it was up today. But we were looking for something that could handle an audience program. So the Q&A, of course, they can select between different tracks or things like that. And the sponsor program. You have to have the ability to do an exhibit online. But we did need it so that you could do all of that unattended from a sponsor perspective. The sponsor might give you one person who's going to be in person in their booth, but that is the person who's also online responsible. And that's the challenge, to be able to do 2 different worlds.
Well, that's
like
just,
that.
the sponsors are there. I mean, at the end of the day, the sponsors are really trying to get their product right. They're just marketers.
They
right?
only
They're
want
marketing
leads.
sales. They want
You
leads.
can
They
tell
want
me they want
names.
other stuff. They want leads.
Yep.
That's it.
The question that we always get is, will they still come? Will attendees still show up? Because nothing beats that, handshake in the hallway. Nothing beats those sidebar conversations that take place. If they can just go ahead and view it from, their couch.
Will they do that?
Will they come in person if you offer the hybrid experience?
The hybrid experience, if done well, if the on-site is done well, the online program is done well, you will actually bring out more people to come in person. People still want to meet people. That serendipity factor. I didn't know what I didn't know. And walking up and down the aisle, I'm going to see stuff. I'm going to hear things. Oh, I didn't know about that.
You don't stumble upon things the same way.
You can't stumble upon something easily with Google and let me just search for it. And the same thing would happen if you were just
If you don't know about it, you can't search for it.
That's
right?
exactly it. And that's what events are really good for. And people still want to come out in person. You have concerts today. You could see any of Taylor Swift's concerts from back in day one on YouTube right now.
Yep.
But every one of those tickets that was available for her entire tour sold out in 2 days. So people still want to have an experience. But you got to have an experience. It can't just be, let me go sit in the conference room and just watch this. So
Exactly.
You have to have more to it.
That's the big thing, and I think we talked with Kelly Cleary from the Castle Group. It said it's more about the experience now than it is just the stage and what's happening. And that to me is one of the big things, that you have to have an experience for both in person and online, trying to create those experiences for folks. At what point in time do you bring in us, right? Do we bring in the experts, the folks that do this on a day-to-day basis? If there are so many things out there that, this is light lift now, I could do this on my own. Why do you bring you in?
During the pandemic years, 2020, 2021, I did 4 ONUG events, all online, because that's my sole focus for those.
Yep.
The moment we were going to go and do it in person, I'm going to be there in person. I have to run the in-person program. I need professionals that can do this video piece. It's not just the video, it's the live stream. I actually have a person that actually travels with me to these various events to run the hop-in piece of it. And it might only be checking this box or clicking this to start things off, but you need to understand the platform. And in your case, you take you're the bridge between what's taking place in person and getting the right camera feed, the 2-camera angle, the zooming in, zooming out, making sure the audio is correct, the lighting,
and making sure that the folks that are remote can communicate with the folks in person, not just by way of chat, but audio, video, up on a screen, up on stage.
And we will have that presenter who, somebody in the family tested positive for COVID. Oh, I'm not going to travel.
Or they did travel and were at the hotel across the street,
Exactly.
and then they're walking out, and then they get the positive test, and they walk right back in.
It was
right?
it was one of our keynoters, and his kid that he had just left the morning before tested positive, and he's like, I'm not so sure I'm going to walk in on that stage and in person. And we very quickly retooled and were able to have him come in as a remote presenter from his new home office there, which is the hotel literally right next door.
And with that in mind, the folks that sign up that want to hear that keynote speaker, they're not missing out. They're still having the opportunity to hear them. They're still having the opportunity to interact, engage, and ask questions of that keynote speaker. That's, to me, the beauty of hybrid right now, is that it's allowed folks to pivot on a dime and still have that interaction, even though life happens. It gets in the way.
It does. And the ability to do one marketing program. So we announce the event. This is the agenda. How you want to consume it, that's up to you. I want to be there in person, which we really hope. I will heavily promote coming on person and being there, hotel programs, receptions, all that kind of good stuff. But if not, and you do want to come online, we'll take you there. With that event that we had in New York, 631 people in person, 1,181 people online, all at the same time.
Wow.
So you get a 2x factor outside, and that's something that you don't see and feel and experience. I see it as a little counter on my computer. And that's not really doing that justice, but that audience was there because of everything that we did. Because we had your team in there with, 5 people, 6 people on staff there? Because we had that person running the chat session because I had that person in the help desk moving things around. All of that needed to be there. That's all part of the package. We did try to use the silent disco approach here. There's good and bad to that. The idea was we have 5 or 6 areas on the show floor that you can have content going.
And it was open ceiling.
Oh yes, this was an old retail store,
open,
and we put up fabric walls that might block your view of something. But that's an 8 foot by an 8 foot piece of fabric,
nylon, right?
Yes, and sound carries. But what it let us do is we adapted silent disco headsets. The way those work at nightclubs is you'll have 3 or 4 DJs, all of them there, performing at the exact same time, but there's no amplifiers, there's no sound system, you don't hear anything. Everyone's wearing a headset. We could be dancing together, you're on the blue channel, I'm on the red channel, listening to something completely different. And then the winner, you count up how many reds, greens, blues, purples, whatever, and that's who wins.
So those are my favorite videos online, when you see an audience of everybody, you know, singing along to a somber, slow song, and then there's one person that has the red instead of the blue turned on, and they're jamming out because they listen to something
And
completely
what we
different.
found is if a room was oversubscribed, and we did have a few of those, you could actually be halfway across the hall and still listen into the exact same thing. So I can go to the lunch area and sit down and turn on the headset, and I could see that they were on the red room, but that red room had 70 people in it, and it had 45
There's
chairs.
no seats left, right?
Yeah. The other thing is you could have the grass is always greener syndrome. It always happens.
Of course.
I picked the wrong session. Well, in this case, you just tap that little button and you can switch sessions without moving anywhere.
Awesome.
Because it's all online, I can go on the app as well, and now I can see the slides from that session. I can actually watch it, but I'm literally sitting in someone else's space.
Awesome. I love that.
So
I love that.
That's technology today, and that's stuff that we were not able to do just a couple of years ago. And if we had tried to do this, they're not cloud-based tools, so I'd have to wire everything up. I mean, as you recall, when we did a lot of shows, we couldn't do it with an Ethernet cable anymore. We had to bring in a lot of stuff. The Hopin platform as an example, or you could be using Cvent, you could be using Bizbo, any of these types of platforms. They are all cloud-based. I don't have to load anything on my own server. And if I need to do something, just open up your laptop, and then we can instantly log in and do it.
And refresh is your friend.
That's the big one.
Just letting everybody know that that's you know, something as simple as that. You know, restarting your computer is really all you have to do.
And it is one of the number one issues that somebody's like, I can't hear anything. Well, I hear the audio. I know that it's working. So
are your speakers on, right? Little things like that.
Yeah, plug the thing, or you unplugged something, and it changes things. Yes.
What do you do with content after the event? How do you make that live on and help you out beyond the couple of days everyone's there on site or watching online?
Well, that's a great question, because we do take all of this time to build up the event, and then you have some great content. All of it is actually recorded automatically using the platforms that we're using. You could be putting tape in the camera and all that as well, recording it that way, but we put in at the beginning of a session what we're calling the bumper, so you have a little audio clip. That instantly is part of the program now, and when I click that replay button, I can actually have that available minutes later. ONUG takes place right now. Let's say this last one was in New York City, so it's Eastern time. All of the content is in replay mode for 9 a.m. in Tokyo again, like just
you do
hours
trips
later.
around the sun, basically.
It's the follow the sun mode. And then it's available again 9 a.m. in London, 10 a.m. in Frankfurt. So people can join in wherever they are, and that's the online world nowadays that people will do it. That's that 1,181 people who came in around the clock elsewhere during their normal hours. By the way, that expo booth was open just as easily during that time as well. So we have more people able to consume this event, and that content, because it was recorded correctly, it didn't need a whole lot of editing, it's available right away. We do edit and trim a few things down. Some of the breakout sessions that we have, you've got a presenter that gets up and the camera's rolling already, and 2 more people stroll in, and then they wait, and then they get their slides ready. All that is on the video. So we remove that and keep it clean, and that goes up onto the final archive site. but it's something that's done fairly quickly, where in the past it was much more challenging.
A lot of times it was months before you get any snipper recording back.
And now we have 2 people doing social media snippets, so that they're pulling little pieces.
I was going to say, I saw one yesterday, right?
You'll see them
on LinkedIn all the time.
We're trying to do 3 of them a week now. And when you have about 40 sessions, 50 sessions in the course of 2 days, there's a lot there.
A lot of stuff that can live on and take you to the next conference,
event,
right?
exactly.
And that's always the goal.
Yep.
One more question, and this is kind of a big one, so maybe you have to pick just one thing. What's the next big thing in the events industry? Pick one.
Pick one.
Good luck.
I think
You're
it really
on your own
is.
On this one.
I think it is going to be this hybrid piece, and we're going to try to find ways to make events that are in person only hybrid, or if things are online, how do I now bring something in person? Because there's still a lot of events that are running online only, and people, it's not COVID anymore. Now they're thinking, well, it just saves a whole bunch of money. I don't have to have food,
money and time,
beverage.
right?
I don't have the AV lighting and all that gear. But they're going to still want to do something, so that the events will try to do things online. We saw it with the big award program that took place over at Fenway Park with the Prince and Princess.
Yes, yep.
It was all in person, except that, we got to put a live stream together, and we've got to have something online. Well, if we're going to have that, then maybe we could overlay a session that's online only. That's making something hybrid out of something that you would never have expected to be hybrid. And the expectation is for the play-along community to be able to be part of it. So when we create events, we really do need to look at and think about that. Something as simple as the local farmers market. It's in person. It runs for a few hours once a week. But could that live online with some kind of a setup? Could there be online booths for these folks? Or some place to see things that they are presenting in person and let me play along because I can't be there in person.
Awesome. Awesome. I love it. Bill, this is fun. I appreciate it, sir.
Sure.
Thanks so much.
Great to be a guest after, it's been, 10, 15
I was going to say
years?
10, 12, 13,
yeah,
and that's,
something
I
like
was,
that.
to be fair for everybody, so Bill and I at one point in time hosted a show together about 15 years ago, which is why things are gray, right?
I had hair.
Yeah. I was trying to find footage from that, but those clips, aren't even on YouTube at this point in time. We did this pre-YouTube before it all, but anyways.
But the mechanics are still the same, it's just the equipment and technology is just so much better.
No question. That'll do it for us. We'll see you next time.